Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I am so excited to film this. This is gonna be the first monthly wrap up that I've done on my channel. I almost didn't do it because the day that I'm filming this, it's July 4th and a lot of booktubers have already uploaded their monthly recap. But yesterday I was in the car for 10 hours coming back home from vacation and I decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and film it. It's okay if it's a bit late. It is my first monthly recap, but I still really wanted to do it because I read some really good books this month. This was a pretty good month for me, as in I read a lot of books that were rated high and I read a lot of popular books this month, so I thought I would share that with you all. I'm really excited. So let's get into all of the books that I read in June. Starting off on possibly the best note possible, the first book that I read in June was Fourth Wing. Now this book, I am sure you've heard of it. This book was blowing up like crazy. Almost every other video I swiped through on my For You page was about Fourth Wing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get it, I'm gonna read it. Mind you, this was the first fantasy book I've ever read. So I've been a romance girl and I've wanted to get into fantasy, but I just hadn't yet. And this is what I started off with. Guys, when I tell you this book, pure straight crack. I don't know what Rebecca put in this. This book has so much going on, I don't even know how to explain it. It's about Violet. She's basically going into writer training. So in this whole fantasy world, there are 4 different quadrants of things that you can train to be. One of them is a scribe, like people who are super into history and everything. Another one of those quadrants is a writer. Violet, her whole life, has been training to be a scribe, and then kind of last second, her mom is like, no, just kidding, you're gonna be a writer. Violet's mom, by the way, is kind of like the ruler of this kingdom. So this book starts off just at the beginning of the whole process of becoming a writer, and this is year 1 for Violet. I think Violet's sister has made it through all 3 of the years, and her sister tells her before she goes into this training to stay away from this guy named Xaden Ryerson because he is literally out to kill Violet. I forget specifically who killed who, but someone in Xaden's family, like his dad killed Violet's brother, and then Violet's mom killed Xaden's dad or something like that. There's just a big rivalry going on between those two, and Xaden literally wants to kill her, and he easily can. And right before she steps onto the beginning, the first challenge of this whole becoming a writer process, she meets Xaden. And the tension that happens between them, this man, Xaden Ryerson, is, I can't even put into words. I'm almost upset that this was the first fantasy I read because it was so good, and my expectations for fantasy books is so high up because this was the first one that I read. So if you have read Fourth Wing and you have any suggestions for me, please let me know, because I'm really wanting to get into fantasy now. But this book was so fast-paced. Literally so much happened within this book. I felt like I read 3 full books by the time this was complete. The action, the magic, the death, the dragons, the love, the romance, oh my goodness. I can understand why people like romance in fantasies because the risk is so much higher in this romance. Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. The romance and the tension was so good. I really got to stop talking about this book. This is the first book I've ever read that I think about daily. Subconsciously, I think about it every single day. It has been a month since I read this book, and every day I'm thinking about it. I believe the author's planning on coming out with a total of 5 or 4 books in this series. I'm so excited for it. I believe the next one is called Iron Flame, and it's coming out in October or November, and I am so excited for this. Absolutely loved this book and rated it 5 stars. This is definitely within top 5 books that I've ever read. Very high 5-star for me. Right after reading Fourth Wing, I wanted to experience the whole a cute little fun romance book after finishing a fantasy book. So I went and read When in Rome. This book is about Amelia and Noah. Amelia is a pop star type of person, and she's kind of lost her flame, her fire, and her zeal, and she just wants to get away for a little bit. She wants to go somewhere where she can fully be herself because she feels like everyone knows the pop star famous version of her, so she decides to try to be independent. She wants to do this on her own. People are always helping her, offering to do everything for her, and she's super inspired by Audrey Hepburn. So she decided to drive to Rome, Kentucky, because Audrey goes to Rome, like the real actual, the country or the city. So Amelia chooses to drive to Rome, Kentucky, and on the way there, her car ends up kind of breaking down in somebody's front yard, and Amelia is going crazy. She's like, this is it. Like, I'm gonna die here and now. This is where things go south. This is where I'm done. Look, I literally can't do anything by myself. I need people to always help me. Her car has broken down in Noah's front yard, so Noah comes out to help her, and they have this whole interaction. He feels like he's seen her before, but he's not quite sure who she is. She thinks he's literally there to actually kill her. Long story short, he ends up saying, please just get out of the car. You can stay with me. You can stay in my house, and I will help you get it fixed. And then the next morning, Noah decides, you know what, just stay here until I can get your car fixed and you're out of here. He's a very no-nonsense type of guy. He's super focused on what he's doing. He owns a bakery, actually, which is literally the cutest thing ever. But yeah, their chemistry was great. I really, really enjoyed this, and the small town world of this book is so good. It felt like this book was wrapping me in a hug in the most comforting way possible. Noah has like 3 other sisters, I believe, and their relationship with Amelia is so heartwarming, and this whole town, I love all the characters. There's so many different aspects of the town that I love. Yeah, this was just such a good feel-good book, and I really loved Noah. Noah, he's a really great character, but this whole small town world is so enjoyable to be immersed in. I ended up rating this 4 stars. Such a perfect read, especially after Fourth Wing. I read this really quickly and really, really enjoyed it. Next book I read was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This was the second book I've read of Emily Henry's. The first one I read was Beach Read, so I had really high expectations and I really just wanted to read another one of her books. Beach Read, also one of my all-time favorite books. So good. I'm sure a lot of you guys have read this book. Emily Henry is a very popular author. This book is about Nora and Charlie, and they're both in the publishing world, I believe. They've had an encounter in the past, and it was just not a good experience, especially for Nora. She just did not like Charlie. She's like, okay, he's stuck up, don't like him. Later on, Nora and her sister Libby decide to go on a trip. I forgot where they go. Oh, it says Sunshine Falls, North Carolina, and they decide to go on a trip. Their relationship has been a little different. They're normally super close. They share everything with each other, and they both felt a little bit of tension, so they're excited to go on this trip together and kind of take a break from their lives for a little bit and just experience fun time together. And then while they're there, Nora ends up seeing Charlie, and she's like, no way this guy is here. What is he doing here? I'm trying to relax and have a good life. So when Libby and Nora are out in a bar, Nora ends up running into Charlie, and they have this cute little thing going on. One thing I can say is the banter between these two, I really enjoyed. I feel like Emily Henry does a good job with this. The banter and the conversations between the characters is so enjoyable, and that's one of my favorite things about a book, when I can just sense the tension and I could sense the emotion, and it's just when the characters are talking. I love it, and that went really well in here. Charlie's also in the book world. Him and Nora end up kind of connecting, and another thing I love about Emily Henry's books is that there is so much more to them than just the romance, and that was the same thing for this book as well. Charlie really helps Nora through some other struggles throughout this book, and there is a lot more meaning. There's a much deeper concept to it than just the romance, which I really enjoy. That just makes me connect to books even more, and I really liked it in this one. Ended up also rating this a 4-star. It wasn't as good as Beach Read, but I don't know how Emily Henry could beat that. The only book of hers that I think might beat Beach Read, just because of what I've heard from other people, is Happy Place. I have not read that yet, but I've heard that a lot of people absolutely love that book, so who knows, that might be up there with Beach Read. But this one was a solid 4-star from me, and definitely a book that I would recommend. Next up we have Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in the When in Rome series. After I read When in Rome, I was like, I have to read this book, because while I was reading When in Rome, one of my favorite sisters was Annie, and I was like, I hope there's a book that's about Annie. I feel like I relate to her, and we have a lot of similar tendencies, and I really just want to hear her story. And guess what? The next book about Annie and Will. So Annie is Noah's youngest sister from When in Rome, and Will is Amelia's bodyguard. These two characters give off that whole grumpy sunshine thing. Annie's super innocent, sweet, kind of like the angel child, that's who she's known as, and then Will is the grumpy, no relationships, nothing serious, bodyguard, that whole vibe. Since this book was obviously still set in that small town world, I ate it up. I absolutely love this world, and I think any book of Sarah Adams that's set in that whole town is one that I'm gonna really enjoy. I just really connected to When in Rome. I really like that whole world, so I enjoyed this as well. Absolutely loved Will. He is just such a good guy. He says so many great things. I love his inner dialogue. So many things about him are green flags. This book, I read it really quickly as well, just like I did with When in Rome. I would say I actually liked When in Rome more than this one. However, I did end up really enjoying Practice Makes Perfect. There were a few moments where Annie was kind of like, didn't give me the ick, but I was like, oh, are you not embarrassed? Like, come on, that's a little childish. Why are we acting like that? Because she is known as the like perfect little sister, super innocent, doesn't like cussing. But yeah, one thing I liked throughout this book was Will helping Annie to embrace who she really was, not just how other people saw her, and to choose to be herself around everyone. And I really liked seeing that growth on Annie's part throughout the story. So another 4-star rating from me. Sarah Adams, please just keep writing books set in this world and in this town, because I will read them and I will love them. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, the first TJR book that I've read. Literally everybody has read this book. I think it was around this time last year when this book got a lot of hype on TikTok and a lot of people were reading it. I finally decided to sit down and read this book, and oh my goodness, such a good decision. This book is centered around the Riva family. They all live in Malibu, California. The eldest sister, her name is Nina. Then we have Jay and Hud, and then the youngest sister, her name is Kit. The setup of this book was really cool because we have the current timeline, and then we have the timeline of the Riva siblings' parents, so we get to see how their parents grew up and got into a relationship. Their parents end up splitting up. We get to see all of that. A lot more insight as to kind of why the siblings are the way they are. And then the present timeline, it's all set within 24 hours. And within those 24 hours, by the end of it, their house is going to be burning down. That's not a spoiler or anything. You know that's going to take place before you start reading the book. I absolutely loved the way Taylor wrote this book. I don't know how she does it. I cannot tell you what she does, but the way these characters feel so real. I've already read another book by her. This is how I feel about all the characters. I feel like I can look them up on Google and all of this information is gonna come up. Like, they just feel so real, and the whole world and everything feels like it's actually taking place. And I have no doubts about it. Like, I genuinely believe that Nina Riva and her whole family is real. They were real, and they are real life people that are alive right now. I am now like a big fan of Taylor's writing. The party scene that takes place at the end of this book, the detail and everything about it, I felt like I was there. I've never had a book that I've read where I've experienced such strong like detail in my mind. I could see everything so clearly in my head. I know that's how it's supposed to be when you read books in general, but this one was different for me. The only thing, and I'm almost mad about this, is I didn't get like that whole 5-star feeling from it. I cannot give a book 5 stars if I don't get that feeling. It just feels wrong. Like, I cannot do that. I'm not gonna force a 5-star read. But this is the highest 4-star I've ever read. I wrote it down somewhere. I was like, this is rated a 4.999. Like, it is right up there for me. It just didn't give me that feeling. I could maybe read this again in the future and it might be a 5-star read, but first time around didn't give me that 5-star feeling. But oh my goodness, I love this book. From this book alone, I'm a fan of TJR and I want to read all of her other books. Next book I read is a super highly anticipated read in the book community, and that is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I got this on the day that it came out, and I'm kind of embarrassed because I have had her book Love on the Brain. I have had that on my physical TBR for so long, it's embarrassing. Close to 8 months now, and I still haven't read it, but when she came out with this book, I got it and I read it so quickly, guys. This book is about Elsie and Jack, and of course, like the rest of Allie's books, apparently they're very scientific and based in the scientific field, kind of like the doctor field. I know that kind of makes her books a miss for some people because they don't like it, but I have heard that she does a good job of explaining things and making it where it's still easy to read for people who don't know anything about that, just like me. And based off of this book, I could say she did a good job with that as well. There was a good bit of scientific stuff in it, but it really didn't take away from the story. Elsie is a scientist, and I think right now she's kind of like a professor. She doesn't make too much money. She's in a tough situation. She's also diabetic, so she struggles with medical bills and stuff because she doesn't have healthcare insurance. And so one thing she does to help earn a little bit money is she kind of is a fake dater. And so she's on this program or this app or something where people can hire her to be their fake girlfriend or something, and she'll like go out and stuff. But one thing she's committed to herself is to not tell those people real details about her. One of her clients, his name is Greg, she's actually gone on multiple dates with him, and she's told him that she's a librarian, I believe, or something like that. And so she's been to a few family events, and Greg's brother, his name is Jack, has been at some of those events, and Elsie has realized that Jack will like look at her strange or look like he's trying to analyze her, and she's like, I don't like that. Like, that's just weird, that's awkward. Elsie sees that there's a possibility for her to get a much better job, one where she can use her gifts and talents in the scientific field much better than just teaching basic stuff that she's not really interested in doing. She wants a chance to research and grow on her scientific ideas. She goes into this interview. There are two different scientist types, theorists and experimentalists, and they kind of have this opposing thing going on. There's this tension between the two sides. Elsie is a theorist, by the way, and Elsie goes into this interview and she knows that there's going to be scientists from both sides interviewing her, and guess who the head of the experimentalists is? Jack, Greg's brother, who Elsie is fake dating. And he looks at her and he's like, what are you doing here? Go back to the library. Aren't you a librarian? When I tell you the tension within this book between these two characters, I ate it up. This is one of those books that had me in those positions where I was like, Lyric, calm down. Like, you look embarrassing right now. I need you to stop smiling and cheesing like that. This is not it. And then on page 283, at the top of page 283, Jack says something and I was like, what did you just say? Like, I read through that line so many times. Ended up rating this book a 4-star. This is a very high 4-star. I would give it about like 4.6. This was one of those books that had like more meaning to it, where Jack is kind of helping Elsie through this people-pleasing thing she has going on. It's a big problem for her, and Jack kind of helps her through it. This man is so... I will 100% be reading more of Allie's books in the future because this one was so good. Next book I read was Only Love Can Hurt Like This by Paige Toon. This was about Ren and Anders. Ren realizes that her fiance is actually in love with someone else, so they break that off, and Ren goes to the small town to live with her dad, his wife, and Ren's stepsister. Ren is from the UK and like the England area, so she's like traveling back to the US just to stay for a few weeks or so because she cannot be in the same city as her ex-fiance. It's just kind of hard. She moves over there, and then her and her stepsister Libby decide to go hang out together because there's kind of been a tension when they were younger, obviously, because Ren's dad literally left to have a whole nother family and live with Libby, so of course there's a little tension, and so they decide to go hang out together. They go to a bar. While they're at the bar, that is when she first sees Anders and Jonas. Both of those guys are brothers, and Anders is like, he's playing pool and he looks up, looks directly at Ren, and they have this split-second moment, and then it's done. After that, throughout the rest of the night, he doesn't look at her. There's no interaction, no talking, nothing. On the way home, Ren is kind of, you know, a little tipsy and stuff. She sees a field of fireflies and she's like, I'm gonna go dance in it. She dances in it, ends up getting lost, and then Anders is coming back home and almost ends up hitting her on his motorcycle. Turns out Ren is actually on his property, and they have this little moment thing, and that's when Ren realizes that Anders and Jonas are her neighbors. And so yeah, they have more encounters throughout this book. There was this little plot twist on Anders' behalf because he has a secret that he can't like open open up and tell Rin about, because it will really just ruin things for a lot of people. And so we end up seeing what that secret is towards the end of this book. I feel like I thought this was going to be more of like a happy little fun romance, but I feel like it was a little less romantic than I was expecting, which might be my fault. Like, I shouldn't assume what the book was going to be beforehand, but I enjoyed the story. However, I didn't feel like I connected as much as I wanted to with Rin and Anders. There's just like that one little thing that couldn't get me to feel connection with the characters. The story was cute. I did enjoy it, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. Kind of a lower end 3-star. I still would recommend it because I think some people would still enjoy reading it. Still enjoyed this book, and I absolutely love the cover. Definitely bonus points for this super beautiful cover. Okay, the last book that I read in June was One for My Enemy by allllll Blake. This was my second fantasy read. I'm on such a high fantasy streak right now. Both of the fantasy books I've read have been so good. This book is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and it's about the Antonova family and the Fedorovs. The Antonovas are a group of, I think it's 7 sisters and their mother, and then the Fedorovs are about 3 brothers and their father. This is set in modern day New York City. Was really neat to experience because they would like whip out a cell phone, and I was like, what are you doing? You should not be having that, but like they should. It's modern day. So both of these families live in New York City. They both have their own shops, and there has been kind of like this competitive thing going on for a long time. We get to see where that competitiveness comes from throughout the book, but I'm trying to tell this without giving away too much, but there's definitely like tension and stuff between some of the siblings. But one thing I can say about this book is that it is possibly one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. The quotes and the writing in this book, it is pure art. It is so beautiful. I made a whole post on my Instagram of some of my favorite quotes, so please, like, if you're considering reading this book, please go look at that. I don't even understand. I never knew words could sound this pretty. I genuinely want to talk to allllll and just hear her talk. She has to talk beautifully. I absolutely loved it. The story was great. I felt like I had read a whole entire book by the time I got to halfway point. Really enjoyed my time reading this book, and it is one that I would highly recommend. This is another one that's like a high rated 4-star. I would rate this around 4.4, 4.5. It was such a beautiful book. Also, look at the cover. Like, I feel like the camera's not picking it up, but this cover is beautiful. The sides and then the inside of the book is just so pretty. Definitely a great fantasy book that I really, really enjoyed. Those are all the books that I read in June. June was a really good reading month for me. Lots of high ratings, even a 5-star, Fourth Wing, which I'm thinking about every single day. I'm probably gonna keep thinking about it until the new one comes out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this monthly wrap up. I hope I didn't talk too long. I just started getting so excited about some books, and I could go on and on about them. Feel free to comment down below if you've read any of these books. Also, comment whatever is on your TBR for July, because it helps me get more ideas for books that I can read, and I just love talking all things books with anyone who will listen or anyone who cares. Feel free to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I post lots of book content and content from my life in general. I'm really active on both of those, so feel free to check those out. All of my links and everything is in the description. I hope you enjoyed. I will try to post my next monthly recap closer to the beginning of the month. This is kind of just a trial video, so bear with me here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love y'all so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!